very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Yuki Poshia, along with our sign language interpreter, Brian De Cruz via Zoom. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Sri Lanka to domestically produce antibiotics that were previously imported. State Minister Professor Channa Jayasumana meets Russian ambassador for discussions on COVID vaccine. The true intentions behind abolishing the Public Utilities Commission, a revelation by civil organizations.
විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලයේ සභාපති ඔහු කියන්නා වූ අදහසම සමපාත වන ආකාරයට ඇමතිතුරුත් කැබිනට් ප්‍රකාශකවරුත් උත්තර දෙනවා. අපිට මේකේ ලොකු පරස්පරයක් දෙන්නවා. මේක වෙලා එකතු වෙලා ගහන ගේමක්ද?
Minister of Ports clarify foreign investment at the East Container Terminal.
මේ වන විට අපි ඉන්දියන් රජයේ සහ ජපාන රජයේ සමග තමයි සාකච්ඡා පවත්වාගෙන යන්නේ. ඒ රටවල වලින් තමයි ඒකට අවශ්‍ය කරන ආයෝජකයන්ව අපිට සම්බන්ධ කරලා දෙන්නේ.
Residents of two areas under lockdown in Colombo take to the streets.
Main sponsor.
On to your lead story for tonight, a new facility to manufacture antibiotics in Sri Lanka was declared open today.
The facility was declared open by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. This new facility, located at the premises of the State Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Corporation, will produce the antibiotic flucloxacillin. The government will incur a cost of 536 million rupees annually to import this drug. The government had to incur a cost of 536 million rupees annually to import this drug.
නිෂ්පාදන නීතිගත සංස්ථාවේ ධාරිතාවය දෙගුණයකින් ඒ නිසා වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා. අපි දන්නවා
The capacity of the State Pharmaceutical Corporation has increased twofold. We bring down about 70% of our medicine from India, Bangladesh and Pakistan. We have a responsibility to produce these drugs locally. We have the knowledge to do this. I believe that there are plans to establish a medical drug production zone in Hambantota. When I asked the secretary to the ministry about it now, he said that it is only for private companies and that the state does not like to come to Hambantota too much. So I believe that if we are constructing a medical drug manufacturing zone in Hambantota, it is best if we ourselves take the first steps in that front as well.
ඒ පිළිබඳවත් සැලකිල්ල මුල් පියවර තබන්න කටයුතු කරොත් තමයි වඩා හොඳ කියලායි මම විශ්වාස කරන්නේ.
Main sponsor.
State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, confirmed that arrangements have already been made to obtain the COVID-19 vaccine in Sri Lanka. He said that the vaccines are expected to be imported to the island through two methods.
We are holding discussions regarding the vaccine from Russia through our ambassador in Russia. Also, we have made preparations to receive the Pfizer-Moderna vaccine and the AstraZeneca vaccine. So based on the response we get from those companies, we are ready to register these vaccines at the National Medicines Regulatory Authority.
What is the procedure to bring down the COVID-19 vaccine to Sri Lanka?
There are two methods. First, we can purchase the Pfizer-Moderna vaccine and the AstraZeneca vaccine through the agents of these private companies here in Sri Lanka. Secondly, since the vaccines in Russia and China are produced by government-affiliated entities, our state institutions can interact with them and get the vaccines. We have already named the State Pharmaceutical Corporation as the Sri Lankan representative in talks for the import of the Russian vaccine.
Meanwhile, State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, met with the Russian ambassador around 3 this afternoon. The meeting was held at the Russian embassy. What is the procedure to approve an indigenous medicine?
This has already been given the preliminary approval for use as an indigenous medicine, but there are a number of requirements that this must meet if it is to be administered to patients at a government hospital or a Western hospital. This is a complicated procedure, and that is why it is taking so long. This needs the approval of the ethics board. I believe that the research team has already taken steps to do that. It is based on those results that the decision on whether the medicine will be given or not.
අපි කළ යුතු දේවල් පැත්තක තියලා නොකළ යුතු දේවල් වල පැටලෙනවා.
We have set aside things that we must do and are getting involved in unwanted things. What we must do is bring down this vaccine to Sri Lanka and give it to the people as soon as possible. It is good if there is an indigenous medicine, but I am a person who was the chairman of the World Health Organization, and every vaccine that is produced, it must be clinically tested and its efficacy looked into. This must be tested scientifically and then given to the people. What if the indigenous medicine does not really cure the people? What will happen then? The medicine must be given after it has been tested.
ඉතින් ඒ නිසා ඒ පිළිබඳව පරීක්ෂණ පවත්වලා තහවුරු කරගෙන තමයි ඒ ලබා දිය යුත්තේ.
Now, does the East Container Terminal at the Colombo port belong to our country or to foreign factions? During an event in Trincomalee today, Subject Minister Rohita Abegunawardena said discussions regarding the ECT is currently underway with Japan and India. However, trade unions allege that a proposal has already been submitted to the cabinet to hand over the East Container Terminal to India's Adani Group.
The East Container Terminal at the Colombo port will be further developed into an economic hub in the future. However, we will not sell anything. Discussions are currently underway with the governments of India and Japan. These parties will connect us with investors.
ඒ රටවලින් තමයි ඒකට අවශ්‍ය කරන ආයෝජකයන්ව අපිට සම්බන්ධ කරලා දෙන්නේ.
During a meeting with Minister Rohita Abegunawardena last evening, trade unions pointed out that the East Container Terminal at the Colombo port can be developed through Sri Lanka's Ports Authority. A proposal in this regard was also handed over to the minister.
600 meters of the East Container Terminal in terms of length has already been constructed, while another 160 meters is due to be constructed. After the 160 meter portion is complete, we can set up another 4 gantry cranes there. When all of this is complete, we will have an operational capacity that would accommodate 7 gantry cranes. The Port Authority has already allocated 13.785 billion rupees to import gantry cranes. However, the cranes will not cost that much. We can develop the 160 meter area with the remaining funds. According to this report, we will receive an inflow of $50 million in 2021. There will be another inflow of $105 million in 2022. We can develop the East Container Terminal with these foreign inflows. This project will not cost $750 million. We are not sure on what basis this report has been prepared. This report has been prepared by the executive officers and engineers involved in the construction of the East Container Terminal. Therefore, we have some faith in this report. We do not need any foreign funding to support us until 2022. We have sufficient resources to help develop the East Container Terminal.
අපි සතුව වත්කම් තියෙනවා මේ නැගෙනහිර පර්යන්තයේ ඉදිරි සංවර්ධන කටයුතු ටික කරන්න.
However, the cabinet paper submitted by Minister Rohita Abegunawardena on the 22nd of October to bring in a foreign investor to develop the East Container Terminal at the Colombo port has given rise to debates in various platforms. The subject minister in his cabinet paper had pointed out that due to the debt liabilities of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, a foreign investor was vital for the development of the terminal. 2 committees are currently studying the proposal to hand over the East Container Terminal to India's Adani Group and the current memorandum of cooperation between India and Japan. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority expressed these views about the importance of developing the East Container Terminal with the support of India.
46% of our business is coming from India. 82% of our business is transshipment. The 82% of the business is coming from outside, out of which about more than 61% is coming from India. So if an Indian company gets involved, and we can retain this, and there are other ports around the region. This is a very competitive business. What we have to understand is very competitive. There are enough ports around who are willing, always trying to grab our business. So it's a huge competition. When we have a competition, if we can get the competitor into our board, into our system, our port, what will happen? So he will also be a partner of ours, rather than keeping him away. Adani is also a major operator in the region, especially in India. If you have to grab the Indian volume, that's also a good option.
The chairman of the Shangri-La Hotel, together with India's Adani Group, are involved in the deal to sell Sri Lanka's East Container Terminal. The Minister of Ports and Shipping is hiding this from the public domain and supporting his allies for their benefit.
ලාංකීය සහ ඉන්දියානු ගජපතිවරුන් සතුට කිරීමේ කටයුතු ඉතාම යහමින් සිද්ධ කරගෙන යනවා.
Meanwhile, employees of Lanka Mineral Sands Limited, who has completed 25 years of service, were presented with awards today. The event took place under the auspices of the Minister of Industries, Vimal Veeravansha.
Awards were presented to 8 employees of Lanka Mineral Sands Limited who have completed 25 years of service.
The Mineral Sands Corporation is a major contributor to our country's economy. Since its inception, the scope of this entity was always limited to sand mining, processing and distribution to foreign parties. Various factions benefited in an unethical manner because of such limitations. Ultimately, such factions earned more profits than the government. We have held discussions with the chairman and general manager of this company to initiate a program where further value can be added to mineral resources such as sand, instead of exporting them overseas. If we as a state institution are unable to achieve this target, we will seek a partnership with the private sector to equip ourselves with the necessary technology. We hope to initiate this program within this year. Arrangements are in place to construct a fertilizer manufacturing facility. We hope to utilize our phosphate deposits in the process. Through this measure, we hope to reduce the foreign currency outflows from Sri Lanka. By utilizing our mineral deposits, we can also generate foreign income.
රටෙන් එළියට යන සල්ලි නතර කරගන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා විතරක් නෙවෙයි ඩොලර් වලින් ආදායම් උපයන්න පුළුවන්කම ලැබෙනවා.
Meanwhile, civil activists allege that the underlying motive behind the abolishing of the Public Utilities Commission is a fraudulent one. Now, the PUCSL had stood up against questionable purchases of electricity while not allowing the increase of prices of utilities in the interest of the public, such as electricity and water.
This child grew up during the time of President Mahinda Rajapaksa. It was strengthened as a regulatory body by a piece of legislature in 2009. I don't think he will abandon the child he raised. We would like to ask the present chairman, which the Herat, and the present minister whether you are implementing this vision of prosperity or something else. They are signalling to the left and turning to the right. The cabinet paper states that investments in the electricity sector will be accelerated by about $2 billion over the next 24 months. $20 billion is the equivalent of 400 billion rupees. What we see is that this cabinet paper is an effort to purchase this power. Is this being done for the profit of that businessman? Is this because of the need to give electricity to the US or to China?
Now that the commission is in place, prices can never be increased through influence of external forces. They know a way to provide relief to the people.
We know that the electricity board has been incurring losses since 2015. All those losses are being passed on to the people. They are taking money from the treasury to maintain this. They maintain this, but because the institution called the Public Utilities Commission was there for the people, they will not be able to burden the people and increase the electricity bill. Has the history of the CEB been ruined over only the last year? Why have they been losing money since 2015? They have been trying to manipulate tenders and have been delaying a proposal approved by the Public Utilities Commission. Also, they have tried to buy electricity. Their activities are not transparent nor correct. The chairman of the electricity board, which is the Herat statement in the media, follows through with the way the ministers and cabinet spokesperson try to protect him. Are they trying to play a game?
Meanwhile, 2 members of the cabinet expressed their views on the proposed abolition of the Public Utilities Commission.
The Public Utilities Commission will not be abolished so as to fulfill the wishes of the people. We will amend that act and remove some of the obstacles in that act and make it an institution that can work for the benefit of the people as soon as possible. We will start an alternative program. When the government brought in the 20th Amendment in place of the 19th, which had these independent commissions, an alternative program has been started. If there is a bottleneck somewhere, we should change it. That is what we are doing.
Now, many Sri Lankan expatriates are eager to return to Sri Lanka. We're now joined by Charlene Benedict from the newsroom to talk about this issue in depth.
Thank you very much, Portia. Expatriates, Sri Lankan expatriates, are stuck between a rock and a hard place. They're running low on money, they're running low on options, and they have very limited chances to return back to Sri Lanka. Now, to add to all of these issues is the exorbitant amount of money that they have to pay to purchase air tickets to return back to Sri Lanka. What's more, making matters worse, these people are forced to pay huge amounts of money to hotels that they are being quarantined at here in Sri Lanka once they return. Now, in the meantime, the government has announced plans on allowing tourists to return to Sri Lanka from the 26th of this month. But will this move really help the tourism sector as a whole to uplift the tourism sector that is currently crashing here in Sri Lanka? There are people who believe otherwise.
රැකියා නැතුව අසරණ වෙලා නන්නත්තර වෙලා ගහෙන් වැටිලා ඉන්න අපේ රටවරුන්ට දැන් ආණ්ඩුව කියන ගොනත් අනින කතාවක් තමයි මම මේ කියන්න හදන්නේ. දින 14ක ක්වොරන්ටයින් කාල සීමාව පහු කර ගන්න මේ තරුපන්ති හෝටල් නෙවෙයි. තම තමන්ගේ ගජමිතුරන්ගේ හෝටල් වලට දානවා.
They are paving the way for their business allies who own hotels to earn more profits by charging exorbitant prices for accommodation. An extra 8,000 rupees is being charged for transport when the cost can be limited with hotel rooms that generally cost not more than 4,000 rupees. Another 450 riyals is being charged to carry out a PCR test prior to getting on board the bus. When you return to Sri Lanka, another 16,000 rupees is charged for a PCR test at the airport. These innocent souls are burdened further when they return to their country. The ruling party's allies have been appointed as agents to sell tickets for migrant workers. Our war heroes are being used to treat their allies. We express our disappointment over this.
විශේෂයෙන් අපේ කනගාටුව අපේ විරෝධය මේ අවස්ථාවේදී අපි ආණ්ඩුවට පළ කරන්නට අපි කැමතියි.
ග්‍රහලෝකයේම ලංකාවේ පමණ
Air ticket prices and the cost of accommodation has only increased in Sri Lanka. I have learned through the comments I have received from the general public that this process is entirely managed by 4 racketeers. And they are
කොරෝනාව ගරානාවක් බවට පත් කරගත්තේ හෝටලේ අයිතිකාරයා කවුද මහත්තයා. ඒ වගේම අධිකාරයේ සභාපතිවරයා ප්‍රමිත්‍රෙක් මම දන්නවා හේදී. නමුත් කරන්නේ වැරදි වැඩක්. ඊට පස්සේ කවුද මහත්තයා. ඒ සභාපතිවරයා. ඩොලර් බිලියන 8ක වංචාවකට අහු වුණු තානාපතිවරයා හිටිය. එතුමාගේ Facebook එකේම තියෙනවා.
He has mentioned on his Facebook page that tourists will arrive in the country via 38 aircrafts after the 26th of this month. We are not sure who these tourists are.
26 වෙනිදාට පස්සේ සංචාරකයන් ගේනවා කියලා අපි දන්නේ කවුද එන්නේ කියලා.
All migrant workers registered with the Foreign Employment Bureau have been brought back to the island. Sri Lankans working overseas can obtain support from the Foreign Employment Bureau support centers in those countries. However, those who have not registered with the Bureau will not have access to such support. We were informed that several groups of Sri Lankans overseas are residing at parks. We got through to most of these groups and instructed them to register with the Foreign Employment Bureau. Most of them have returned to Sri Lanka. It's true that there are sufficient funds in the Foreign Ministry. However, these matters are being handled by both the Foreign Ministry and the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has given instructions to bring down all Sri Lankan migrant workers during the next few days. Arrangements for this is currently underway. If there is any requirement for funds, we will provide it. However, as of now, there is no such requirement.
Meanwhile, the chairman of Tourism and Industry points out that although the government had taken steps to reopen Sri Lanka to foreign tourists, many factions within the sector will not benefit from this decision. Airports are scheduled to reopen on the 26th of this month. However, the tourists who visit the country will be directed to all high-end hotels. We urge the government to look into this matter and ensure that small and medium-scale hospitality providers will also be given an opportunity to benefit from this decision. It is only then the economy will develop. Meanwhile, factions engaged in the small and medium tourism sector engaged in a silent protest opposite the Ministry of Tourism today. They urged the authorities to establish a mechanism to address the problems they are currently facing.
The local tourism sector directly employs approximately 175,000 individuals and indirectly supports more than 230,000, which means more than 400,000 tourism sector employees are helpless at present. We have been suffering since the attacks in April last year. Both governments have not taken taken proper action to rebuild the tourism sector. We cannot remain silent anymore. Although a few high-end and luxury hotels are managing to survive, the small and medium-scale hotels have been severely inconvenienced. The government does not have any plan to support us. We request the authorities to provide some sort of an allowance to these employees. Their jobs have been affected due to the prevailing situation. I urge the President and the Labour Minister to intervene and support their jobs. We might die of COVID-19 or we might die of hunger. We have come to a point where we are compelled to choose one of these options. Our children are suffering. We will not engage in a silent protest anymore. We will take to the streets with a more powerful force.
මේ නිහඬ විරෝධතා කියන කාරණේ කරන්නේ නැහැ. මීට වඩා දැවැන්ත බලයක් සමග අපි පාරට එනවා.
Moving on to some more local news. Parents of the 21-day-old infant who was cremated after he passed away due to COVID-19 filed a fundamental rights application at the Supreme Court today. The parents of the deceased child are seeking an order from court directing the Director General of Health Services and other officials to submit the relevant reports to court for an investigation.
Mohammed Maharoof, Mohammed Fahim and Fatima Sapnas, residents of Ferguson Road in Colombo 15, filed the petition. The Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardena, Director of the Lady Ridgeway Hospital for Children, Dr. G. Vijay Surya, Minister of Health, Pavitra Vanyarachi, State Minister of Primary Healthcare, Epidemics and COVID Disease Control, Dr. Sudarshini Fernando Pillai, Sujiva Munasinghe from the Ministry of Health, Secretary to the State Ministry of Public Health Services, Dr. Amal Harsha De Silva, and the Attorney General. The petitioners point out that there was no need for the body of the deceased child to be cremated, and at the time the body of the infant was cremated, the bodies of 19 other COVID-19 victims were at the morgue. Meanwhile, the Director General of Health Services has informed the Galle police station in writing to conduct the final rites of the COVID-19 related death of a Muslim man in Galle, according to the circular that has been issued. The public health inspector had previously ordered for the body of the 84-year-old deceased to be cremated, as he had passed away as a result of COVID-19. However, a case was filed at the Galle Magistrate Court by the relatives of the deceased, seeking an order to stay the cremation of the body until the report of the special committee appointed to look into the burials of COVID-19 victims is submitted. Considering the facts of the case, the Galle Magistrate ordered for action to be taken based on the advice of the Director General of Health Services. Thereby, the Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardena, writing to the Chief Inspector of the Galle Police, directed him to act according to the circular that has already been issued with regard to COVID-19 related deaths. At an event in Galle, Minister of Justice, President's Counsel Ali Sabri, spoke about the government's plans on burials of COVID-19 victims.
There is an issue with regard to the burial of COVID-19 victims and the storage of these bodies at morgues. Will the government make a swift decision on this matter? What is the progress on that?
That question must be directed to the government and the Minister of Health. But personally, I believe this is not something to be ashamed of. When there are different views on a matter, it must be discussed, examined, medical experts must be consulted, and it must be resolved. That is not a bad thing, so I am positive about the ongoing discussions. That is why we are presenting this point of view. We are trying to unite our people, not divide them and separate them any further.
There is an issue regarding space at the morgues at hospitals as the bodies of COVID-19 patients are stored there because there is no final decision on their burial.
I believe that the Ministry of Health is working on that. As far as I know, if there is an issue like that, they will cremate the bodies. There is no issue there. We are looking at a long-term solution. Health-related issues are not one-sided. All people in the country must be healed mentally as well. So we as the government will consider all of that. Meanwhile, the Samagi Jana Balavegia staged a protest against the actions of the government with regard to cremation of bodies of COVID-19 victims. Many parliamentarians representing the Samagi Jana Balavegia, including opposition leader Sajid Premadasa, were present at the protest staged opposite the Boralla cemetery. We must give the Buddhist community of this country the right to perform the Pansakula Puja for their deceased loved ones. Similarly, we must give people the right to perform their final rites according to their beliefs. 190 countries in the world have afforded these rights to their people. The World Health Organization has very clearly given their guidelines. We would like to question the government on why they have adhered to the advice on the World Health Organization on every other matter except for the burial of COVID-19 victims.
අනෙකුත් සෑම අවස්ථාවකම පිළිපදින්නටත් මේ මොහොතේ විතරක් පිළි නොපදින්නටත් හේතුව අපි රජයෙන් ප්‍රශ්න කරන්නට ඕන. සිංහල බෞද්ධ ජනතාවගේ ඡන්දයෙන් පත්වෙච්ච මේ ආණ්ඩුව.
The ruling party that came into power through the votes of the Buddhist citizens in the country have been put in a position that does not allow them to perform the final rites of the people who died due to COVID-19. This government has failed in all aspects, including economic, education and health sectors. Since this government has failed to curb the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, the least that could be done by this government is to make arrangements to allow the final rites to be performed according to their respective religions, regardless of being Buddhist, Catholic or Muslim. I think this government is trying to mislead the general public. This is a country that is giving the public a tonic instead of PCR tests. The government is disrespecting all religions by doing this. We are not medical experts. This government has fallen to a bad place by standing for the popular opinion instead of basing their decisions on scientific facts. Appoint a specialist committee and get their recommendations. Consult religious leaders. We don't see a program like this. The government is deciding to cremate the bodies and then later they are placing the bodies in refrigerators. What is the meaning of this? This is a religious right of the Muslim community. They believe that we are born from this earth and in the end we must become fertilizer to the same soil. That is the Muslim culture. That is their religious right. When this religious right is put down, everyone burns. That is the danger here. Remember that the Tamil issue was a national issue. The Muslim issue is a religious problem. Religious issues are more sensitive. I will stand for what is right and I will not stand for popular opinions.
මමනම් පෙනී ඉන්නේ හරි දේ මිසක් ජනප්‍රිය මතය.
Residents of the Lanka housing complex, which is currently in isolation, staged a protest today. The group of residents staged a protest opposite the Kulanawa clock tower for more than 2 hours, demanding the authorities to lift the isolation status on the Lanka housing complex. We need to work. We have been isolated for almost 2 months. We don't want food hampers. We want to return to work.
Lift the isolation status so we can return to normalcy. There are almost 3,500 families residing at the housing complex. We will lose our jobs and companies will refuse to recruit us.
Meanwhile, locals of the Alagahakumbra village in Vanadamulla staged a protest today, demanding that the isolation status on their village be lifted. Borella ASP Nayan Priya Edirisinghe arrived at the scene. The protesters dispersed after the police officer pledged to provide a solution to the matter. Let's now toss over to a short commercial break. Welcome back to the news. Now, the Supreme Court today dismissed petitions filed seeking an interim injunction order preventing the enrollment of students for the faculties of engineering and physical sciences based on the university cutoff mark of the Z-score.
The petition was filed by 42 students who sat for the GCE advanced level examination in 2019 via the new syllabus and passed. The petitions were considered in the presence of the Supreme Court bench comprising of Justices Buwaneka Aluihare, Esture Raja and Yasantha Kodagoda. The Supreme Court dismissed the petitions by majority decision. The Education Minister, Education Secretary, Commissioner General of Examinations, the University Grants Commission and its chair along with the Attorney General were named as respondents in the petitions.
Meanwhile, the 5-member panel of experts appointed to investigate the unrest at the Mahara prison today reported to Wattala Magistrate Buddhika Sri Ragala that 4 of the 11 inmates who died in the recent clashes had died from gunshot wounds. The autopsy reports had shown that the individuals were infected with COVID-19 as well.
The magistrate decided to issue an order on the 3rd of January 2021 on whether to allow the burial or cremation of the bodies of the 4 deceased detainees. Earlier, the findings of the inquest into the deaths of the 4 inmates had revealed to court that all 4 had died as a result of gunshots. Meanwhile, the autopsy of 3 other deceased Mahara prison inmates are due to be conducted as well.
People who sacrifice their sleep to chase wild elephants during night time have to toil with the earth during the day to sustain their livelihoods. Now this is the life of the people of the Walsapugala village in Suryavava, Hambantota.
This was the state of the Walsapugala village in Suryavava last night. Our regional correspondent Roshan Rajika went to this village last night to report on the lives of these people living with the threat of wild elephants. I am in the Walsapugala area in Suryavava, Hambantota. It's a village where the threat of wild elephants has been consistent. Today we saw how the people of this village are on a mission against these elephants during the night. The people of this village, men and women alike, are engaged in the struggle to protect the village from wild elephants and stay awake all night.
මාතෝ මේක තමයි අපේ ජීවිතේ. අද මෙතන නේද හෙට අපිට කන්න නැහැ. කෑට නිදා ගන්න නැහැ මේ අලි යුද්ධේ නිසා. මේ ගමේ තරුණ
The elephant comes here. Now here is the current wire. This current has been supplied, but there is no electricity anymore. Every day this wire breaks and damages the crops. The villagers say that there is an electric fence around the village in order to protect it. If there is electricity, it must electrocute me. These are crimes committed against the people. Here are the crimes. See if there is electricity. These villagers ask for one thing. It is that they be allowed to sleep soundly at night after long days of hard work on the ground. The Gamada team has previously toured these areas and reported on the problems faced by these people. There is, however, no solution to the elephant problem as of yet.
With that, let's toss over to a short commercial break.
Legends 966 this season, a collection of the most memorable songs, Christmas hits and family favorites 24/7. Tune in now.
Do your online shopping now with Sambole.lk to get it home delivered or pick up on your way.
Sambole.lk.
Welcome back to the news. In a bid to protect the leopard population in Sri Lanka, 5 leopard transport cages have been donated to the Department of Wildlife Conservation.
These leopard transportation cages have been designed and constructed as per the requirements of the Department of Wildlife Conservation.
Today is a memorable day for the department because we donated 5 leopard transport cages from various parties. So this we used for especially in areas those leopard conflicts is maximum. So this will be distributed among the officials of the department.
දැන් ලංකාවේ leopardsලා අහු වෙනවා වැඩි snares වලට. ඉතින් ඒ හින්දා වනජීවන
Many leopards are falling victim to snares. We have provided 5 cages so that they would be set up at various places for the benefit of the animal. This was provided to the department so that they could distribute it to veterinary surgeons.
Now, despite the COVID-19 outbreak in the country, the annual flagship event of the Colombo Scouts Camporee 2020 was conducted virtually this year.
For the 55th time, Colombo Camporee 2020 event commenced today as a virtual camporee with the participation of over 4,500 Sigiti Scouts, Cub Scouts, Junior Scouts, Senior Scouts and Rover Scout from the 23rd to the 29th of December. This camporee marks down as the first ever national level virtual scout camp.
Camporee, Camporee, Colombo Camporee, 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 Colombo Camporee, Camporee.
The organizing committee has made all arrangements to host a fully virtual camporee experience for attendees to participate in a comprehensive 30 skilorama activities, virtual campfire, Cub Day, Cub Talent Show, Christmas carols, fireside conversations with leaders in the country, sessions on yoga and mental well-being, international cultural exchange programs and online workshops facilitated by partner organizations.
Do your online shopping now with Sambole.lk to get it home delivered or pick up on your way.
Sambole.lk.
In your weather update, the Met Department warns that thunder showers will occur at several places in the Sabaragamu and Western provinces, as well as in the Gaul, Mathura and Nuwara districts. The department said in a statement that there was a possibility of rains exceeding 100 millimeters in some areas.
The Meteorological Department warns that there could be temporary strong winds with thunder showers. The department urges the public to take necessary measures to minimize damages caused by lightning. Meanwhile, landslide warnings have been issued for a number of areas in 4 districts in the country. These include Bulat Singhal in the Kalutara district, Dehiyowita in the Kagol district, Kotapola in the Mathura district and Ayagama and Kahawatta in the Ratnapura district.
And with that, it's a wrap of primetime news here on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Yuki Koshia. Take care and good night.